Hi, my name is Jason Davila, president of the Players of the Pear Garden,
And I'm Cameron, treasurer of the Players of the Pear Garden.
and we are the podcast of the Pear Garden.
What?
Oh, you don't know the story behind that?
No.
Oh, so you tell the story. It's your thing.
Okay, so remember how we did A View from the Bridge?
I recall.
So every
trauma is
single
settling back in.
night of rehearsal and the shows, I would always enter stage as Alfietti going. You wouldn't have known it, but something amusing just happened, right? And for some reason, the entire class, including the seniors of that time, thought it was hilarious that I always entered doing this.
I see.
And so every single interaction that I had with the seniors, they were like, "Oh, Jason, how are you doing? How's it going?" And that carried on to the classes, that carried on to the professors that we were communicating, and then now even the younger
The younger.
ones.
Well, that's
Oh, the babies. Oh.
well, it doesn't help that you also brought it into your person too.
Oh yeah,
After the
now
play.
it's a Jason thing. Now it's no longer an Alfietti thing. It's a
It
Jason
was
thing.
always a Jason thing, but
It
okay.
was always a Jason.
It was always a Jason
It was
thing.
always a Jason thing.
Let's watch, shall we?
The Alfietti hands. Anyways, hi. We'll be interviewing a lovely guest here, Miss Kat. We appreciate you coming along,
Thank you for having me.
of course. Now, very crazy question. Who are you?
I'm Miss Cat, and I've been here for 20 years.
Doing what?
I'm the costume shop manager here at California State University San Bernardino. I've been here for 20 years. I look forward to the next iteration of what occurs in our building and space and giving my actors a hard time.
You know, growing up, how was your experience growing up? What led you to going into, getting into the field of the arts, especially was it through your high school? Was it through a collegial level? How overall was that experience as you're growing older, going into the field of arts?
Are you asking me why I'm a theater nerd? Is that what you're asking me? Because I can answer that question, of course.
Sure,
I
yeah.
grew up Tiny Toe Tappers, YMCA, ballet and tap after a little bit of gymnastics, and then I realized how much I enjoyed tap dance. So I actually started in dance. That was the thing that I enjoyed the most. In and around middle school, I sort of aged out of dance. It's kind of the point where either you're going to stick with it and become more professional per se, like the ballet is life. It was not life. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the thing I did all the time. But I grew up in a very creative household. My mother is a watercolor artist. My brother is very involved in theater. He's actually worked for Cirque du Soleil, South Coast Rep, lots of things like that. So theater has just sort of always been in my life and what I do. And in high school, I just started right away. If I wasn't in the play, I was working backstage. I was always involved in almost every single production we did. I also did mock trial, which is in and of itself a type of theater. Like I said, if I wasn't on stage, I was backstage. I did grow up sewing. My mother taught me how to sew. My grandmother, both grandmothers would sew. I was very lucky. I had a granny who would make clothes for me and a grandmother who would make clothes for my dolls. So I was well taken care of in that aspect. But I learned how to sew at a young age. I would use mom's machines. I made my own prom dresses. My boyfriend's at the time in the 90s, vests and bow ties. It was very matchy-matchy. And fairly self-taught, but a little bit through mom. Did costumes in high school as well. But then I went to an all-women's college in Missouri. It's called Cody College. It's a small 2-year university in Nevada, Missouri. I guess not university, college. And about 300 women total for both freshman and senior year, they called it. And I met Dr. Nancy Haynes, and she was the theater arts professor. And I took a independent study with her in costume history. And I met with her weekly. We had semesters. I would meet with her once a week. And I would go over this chapter in a book that she had assigned to me, and I just fell in love with the histories of costumes and with Dr. Haynes in general. She was an excellent professor and mentor, and she's sort of part of the reason why I ended up here.
I see. So, with costume designing in overall, this is the passion that you knew from, since high school. This was a passion that you wanted to continue going forth as you started going into the art of theater, essentially.
Theater in general was
Theater
what I
in
wanted to
general.
do. I was not shy. I know you're shocked. But I was on stage quite a bit if I wasn't backstage.
Right.
And so I enjoyed performing as well. So whatever aspect I could be involved in, believe it or not, originally I thought I was going to be a lighting designer. I did do some of that in my very early years of college, but lights are heavy and dirty. So I moved into costuming. But I have an overall appreciation for all arts of theater and the reason why we do what we do and the storytelling.
You say that you wanted to originally do lighting design. Did you ever consider combining lighting design with your costume work?
Not particularly. They're very different technologically. At least they were in the 90s. Women in that field at the time is not like it is now. It's not as common. I was at an all-women's college, so that's who was there. Mr. Fensky was our German art teacher, or theater arts teacher, so he would always have these group of girls around him to do the theater. So I knew nothing different, All women could do all of these things because that's who was there. I would run follow spot. I was terrible at it. I got too involved in the show. I'd be like, they're over there now. Oh, sorry. I was watching. My bad. So I found that my proclivity was more towards costuming. I had a larger talent there than I guess I would say that I did in lighting design. Even though I enjoyed it. And I did take it in grad school, and I got my A, so.
So where did you go to grad school?
USC.
Ah.
Yeah, I have my Master of Fine Arts in design. So I theoretically could do all of them except sound, because sound is a mystery and magic as far as I'm concerned. I can wind a cord, though. I do know how to do that. Over, under, never around the elbow.
You mentioned how, with your experiences in Missouri and then overall coming to USC, what kind of drew you into wanting to go to CSUSB's department here and working with costuming?
So, sit right back and you'll hear a tale. I've told many people this story, but as I said, Dr. Haynes is sort of the reason I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I can really trace it back to my grandmother. She's the reason I went to Coddy. Mm-hmm. And from Coddy, being a 2-year school, I did have to transfer in order to get my bachelor's. And I was accepted at UC Irvine in the theater arts department and Cal Poly Pomona. I was set to go to UC Irvine. I had a roommate and everything. I was going to go. I had to go and check in, and they're like, oh, by the way, you need more math. And I said, no, I don't need more math. They're like, no, you need one more math. I said, no. I took calculus, and I passed it with my B, non-math major. I don't have to take more math. They said, oh, you can take a lower math. And I said, I'm sorry. I passed calculus. Why would I take a lower math? So Cal Poly Pomona reached out to me, and they didn't require any more math. And honest to God, that's why I went to Cal Poly Pomona, because I was like, I like math. I use math all the time, but I'm not a math major. I passed my calculus. I don't need to do more. In going to Cal Poly Pomona, I met Kathy Wan, who is the costume shop, not the manager. Mary Robinette is the costume shop manager there, but Kathy Wan was the costume design professor. She became my mentor. I was there for 3 years. In the last semester of my 3.5 year, she received a phone call, and it was an alumni from Cal Poly who actually worked at USC. She was the technical director over there. They had someone in their costume design program drop out mid-year, and they actually had 2 they needed to fill in. And she was reaching out to Kathy to see if she knew of any candidates. She literally Kathy leaned back on the phone. Hey, Kat, were you going to go to grad school? I was like, sure. I didn't know. I was graduating in a few weeks. I had no idea what I was doing next. I got an audition. I always say audition. Interview at USC with the costume faculty there. He looked over my portfolio, and in January of 2000, I started USC, basically, for all intents and purposes, on a whim. So I went to USC, I got my MFA, graduated. My husband and I were getting married. We were going to have our first child. I was living the stay-at-home mom life. And Kathy Wan from Cal Poly Pomona, who I'd stayed very good friends with, called me up, and she said, Trudy Fidel is retiring. You need to go apply for this job. So Trudy is the shop manager. I'm still 20 years in, the new Trudy, to those people on campus. Trudy's a very sweet woman. I love her to pieces, and I'm very grateful that she's one of my dear friends now. But she had retired. I came in, I auditioned, interviewed. I was not the first choice. I did not get the job initially. was given to a person with more experience than I had at the time. And that was in November, December of 2004. In late December of 2004, I got the thank you, no thank you letter, and I was very sad. I was doing Carpet Angels. I'll never get a job. And then 2 days later, I got a phone call from HR. And they said, oh, we'd like to have you come in. And I thought, is this like a follow-up interview as to why you didn't get the job? I don't want that. Great, I suck. Tell me more, right? But it was the person who had accepted the job felt that they couldn't come to San Bernardino for some reason. And I was local. I was in the pool. And Kathy Urban, she said, call this person. They called me up. And I started on January 3rd, 2005.
Wow.
It was an emergency hire, and I've been here ever since.
Wow.
So I can trace my path basically back through 5 people as to how I ended up here.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people can, so I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now, with your experiences working here since 2005, what are some of the most memorable moments with your job position here?
There's so many things. Gosh, I don't want to have blank airtime. I should keep talking, but it's you got to think about it, right? What memorable? So many memories, so many different things. You know, I was 29 when I started here. I was closer in age to the students. Now I'm not 29, so it's a little different relationship with the students. But I guess my most memorable things was getting to know the students that I've really interacted with and become close with over the years. And while that type of relationship has changed, they're all still very valuable to me. You know, it's less of intimate friendship and more into a mentorship probably now, I hope, anyway. But I feel very lucky that I'm even in the position to be able to do that.
Right.
So I enjoy it. I enjoy the students. The students are the reason we're here. I mean, otherwise, what's the point?
When my experience is here, because we're both going to be finishing our 4th year. I know I've been mostly running around different areas of the building here, but I've known the other alumni that have worked here, your student assistants that have been working with you, and they always love talking about you in a good way. Don't worry,
Oh, good.
In a good way. I've always been hearing how great you are.
Oh,
right?
thank you. It's very kind.
And you know, even just working with the past productions that we've had here, with alongside your work with Professor Harrington, right, with designing and overall managing the shop, it has been wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Right. I especially remember the good old times when I would miss my my appointments, show up with the chocolates.
The good old times.
Good old
Yeah,
times.
Those were my favorite. Notice I didn't bring those up with good memories.
Well, they were your favorite because now you got chocolate.
Now you got chocolate.
If you brought the proper chocolate. Because remember,
Dove and above.
Dove and
Dove and
above.
above.
Exactly. A for the day. And white chocolate is not chocolate. It doesn't count.
But no, it's truly been wonderful, right? Again, I have been going in and out through all the different areas here within the department just because it's just chaos. But I always hear so much about you, and I'm always fascinated with the work that you have been exhibiting all throughout your years here, right?
Oh, thank you.
And overall as well, you know, the reason why I ask about your favorite memorable moments, it kind of leads into the whole aspect of when it comes to creating a piece, right? Creating a costume piece. What is your favorite journey in regards to building a piece? Like from start to end in that journey, where do you find yourself having just like, yes, this is the moment?
I don't know that I have a favorite spot in the design process and the creation process for a costume. It sort of depends on the production, the student I'm building it for, all sorts of things. I enjoy the challenge, the technical challenge of taking something two-dimensional that the professor has created and how do I make it three-dimensional. The math of it, even though I teased about math earlier, that challenges my brain, keeps it going. But some of my favorite interactions is when usually a new student, someone who hasn't worked with us before, they're unsure about costumes, what it's going to be like, what's going to happen, and you put that costume on them for the first time, complete or near complete, not so much fittings, but you know, and you just see their face change. Right? They see the character, they see themselves in the character. There's been a couple times where I've had a couple of, in this story in particular, a young lady not quite sure about herself, and you put her into a costume and to see her shoulders straighten and her head come up a little bit higher. And I'm like, it's not the costume, honey, that's you, right? Allowing people to find things within themselves because of something external that allows them to feel more themselves is rather rewarding, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes. When putting on the pieces for either Alfietti or Ratchet even, when during those fittings, yeah, I definitely say, because I always as an actor has been like, oh God, I don't know, I'm scared, I'm nervous putting on the costume piece because I don't know, I'm going through a whole different cycle in my brain where it's just like, oh God, am I going to be able to fulfill what their vision is as an actor, right? I don't know, it's a weird, strange anxiety circle.
It's not weird. It makes total sense because it's personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not scenery, right? Like, that's one of the things that costuming is very different than many of the other aspects that we do in theaters. The scenery is not going to hurt your feelings, right? It's not. It doesn't. You're not going to look at it and go, "Well, that's the wrong size,"
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not going to internalize something from the lights or the scenery, or
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I hand you a garment that is too small for some reason, you may internalize that instead of I grabbed the wrong one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When it's not personal, it's not a commentary on your body type or shape or anything. It's Miss Cap picked up the wrong damn thing, right? But I have to be mindful of that. Mm-hmm. There's an extra layer of mindfulness that I find in terms of what I do in caring for the actor, the person, because you're interacting with a person. You're not interacting with scenery,
Right.
and so there's ego. There's so much trauma that may be in there that you don't know about that you have to be mindful of, or we are trying to become more mindful of, right? Used to be you just grab an actor, flip them around, start touching them, doing whatever. And, in the last few years, you may have noticed to say, may I touch you? Or I'll let you know during the fitting I'm going to need to touch you. Are you comfortable with that?
Right.
Having boundaries, being mindful of them, making my actors more comfortable if possible. Even if I'm a hard ass, right? Like, I'm a hard ass. Nobody knows that I'm not. But it's because I take my job seriously, but that
Right.
doesn't mean I don't worry about your safety and want to keep you safe.
Right.
I do want you to wear whatever costume I give you because that's what was chosen for you. However, I also want to be mindful of who you are,
Right.
as a person.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I can still remember my first costume fitting when I was getting fitted for Anansi's Carnival Adventure. Mm-hmm. And I can still remember that wig.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've had some fun costumes here.
Yeah.
But has there been a time when you saw, like, you had an original vision of how the costume would look, how it would be, how it would feel for the actor, you put it on them, and then that is not what it was supposed to be at all? Like, have you ever had those moments
Yes.
of, like, this was not, we're gonna have to do a quick U-turn?
That's why we do a dress parade. I do want to point something out, though. Here at Cal State, those aren't my decisions. That's up to the designer, which is traditionally Professor Harrington. I do work in tandem with him, but if he has a vision and sees it on the performer and be like, ooh, we need to change that, that's going to be his call, not mine. I may influence it a little bit, but that just to be clear that as the shop manager, my job is to execute the vision of the designer and the needs for the production. And it's not up to me to like it or not like it, if that makes sense. But as a designer, when I was in undergrad at Cal Poly Pomona, I was the designer for my senior project, Arms and the Man. No, don't look it up. Anyway, George Bernard Shaw. It was not a great play, but
Look it up. Look it up right now. Look it up while you're listening.
I mean, you have to know who George Bernard Shaw is to begin with, so let me know how that works out. But beautiful piece of acting that occurred in that show, but I had an actress come up in this nightgown scene. We'd made this lovely nightgown, and we did dress parades with actual lighting that needed to be for the production, so whatever scene we were in, they would put those lights up. And both myself and my mentor went, oh, that's wrong. I had two pieces actually in that production that once we got them on stage, it was like, ooh, that's not right. That's the wrong color. The nightgown itself was too bright, and they were leaving the lights were supposed to be a nighttime scene, so they had these beautiful blue-green lights. But for whatever reason, the white fabric I chose just like, she glowed like a ghost. It was distracting. So we're like, oh, got to fix that. And then I had another dress that we had built from scratch, a late bustle dress. So it's not like I'm going down to Ross and picking out another one. We had to build an entirely new dress because the color of silk in the shop, beautiful, on the stage, mostly beautiful, pulled up those lights. Oh, that's not going to work. So we had to, with a week to go, basically recreate an entire costume.
I see.
How quickly can you turn around an outfit like that?
It depends. Well, there is a learning curve. If I've already built something, we already know how to build it, so I can usually build it faster, stronger. That's for Scott. But you know, you do what you got to do. I've had a couple of times with we get to dress parade, and our director does not care for a certain dress or something, and I'm like, okay, I'll be spending the weekend building a new dress, and you knock it out as quickly as you can. Theoretically, most everything else is done, so you have the time to focus on that, but I can make a dress in under 24 hours. You're not going to wear it to the Met Gala, but I can make a dress under 24 hours.
That's a good skill to have.
It's a great skill to have.
It comes in handy sometimes. Oh, I forgot my kid has a costume tomorrow. Can you make this, Miss Cat? Okay. Yes, I can, but should I?
Well, speaking of skills, what kind of skills are required for making a costume and like having everything set out properly so that you can make the garment correctly?
Practice, lots of practice. It is not something you actually need to technically go to school for, if I'm being honest. If you want to be constructing things, you're going to need to learn how to sew, use that sewing machine, have a basic knowledge of patterns, how they work, how fabric works, but you can learn those things over time. Like I said, I was mostly self-taught up until college, but once you learn the basic skills, it's practice. You just have to do it over and over again, and your skills will improve. And that's what I sort of enjoy about here, as well as I think of some of the costumes I made 20 years ago as compared to what I would make now. They've improved, and I'm proud of myself for that. You know, my skill set has improved, right? You know, and teaching it to the students, it improves my skills, which is one of the reasons I encourage, and by encourage I mean make my student assistants teach other students how to sew. Because, and I tell them that when I ask them to do it, is I'm not just throwing you under the bus to go teach because I need to go do some paperwork. I'm showing you what it is to teach, and because you speak differently, you have to articulate things differently, more fully when you're trying to explain something rather than just do it. So that allows them to practice teaching, and then my other students to learn. And I'm always listening to be like, well, let's not forget this part. And it helps me to be a better teacher as well, because I hear the things that they use and how they articulate things. Because how people learn over the last 20 years has changed. Yeah. So I have to articulate differently, think about how people relate to hand skills differently, all kinds of things. And I have left-handed scissors, just going to throw that out there. Throws everybody's mind into tilt when I say, oh, you're left-handed, I have scissors for you. What? They're so used to right-handed scissors. So.
Yeah, you know, that's the point to lead exactly on why we do interviews like this, right? Is to encourage the audience members, whether they're incoming students, current students here at CSUSB, you know, to come join as a student assistant, right? Come help us with our productions here, or just want to learn some new stuff, right? You know, examples like Miss Cat here on willing to help you and teach you, learn a whole bunch of different skill sets that could be utilized in so many things, right?
I'll teach you the ancient art of ironing.
Ooh. Right, so it's
how to sew on a button, right?
Exactly,
like
yeah.
simple things that will take you into the future prepared.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, that is exactly why we encourage you. Join. One of us. So, Ms. Cat, another question that I have is, can you recall a time to when you had to face like a difficult challenge, right? And how you had to overcome that experience?
Difficult challenge. I guess I would mean contextually, what do you mean? Probably some of the greater challenges we've had is it's not with the students. Those are easy to overcome, and because we work towards what's best for the student and the production. It was the year of the flood. I've been through two, gentlemen, not just
Really?
one. Yes, we had the flood of '06 and the flood of 22. I think it was 22. Yeah. I was displaced for 3 months. I ended up in Chaparral Hall. So I had to take everything out of my existing shop, set up a temporary shop in CH 109, make it work, get my show up, but the show up was on time. And that was A View from a Bridge.
Right. Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was the time. Yeah.
You
I
adapt
recall.
and you overcome. You do what you have to do. That's the thing I don't think many people really realize about theater. There's no changing the date. That's not wholly true, but it's mostly true. There's no, let's just push it back. It'll be fine. That deadline's now soft. No, no, no. We open when we open. It has to be as ready as it can be, and there's no time to dilly-dally. You do what you have to do.
Exactly.
So those are my biggest challenges, making sure we're ready on time, despite the weather and the building and the weather. Again, that was my second flood.
Right.
What was it like during the first flood?
First one, yeah.
The first flood, it was Friday the 13th, if I remember correctly. It was the weekend of the powwow. I got a phone call from Harlan, who was here at the time. He was our scene shop manager at the time. He called and it was like, there's been a flood. So off I came. He's down here with a shop vac trying to get it. Water went all the way from the music garden, under the door, under my door, all the way back into my office. So everything had to come away from the walls. We moved it all towards the cutting table at the time. I actually moved up to 225 for that semester, or we were quarters then for that quarter. I moved up there. I still had access some, but you just moved. Everything came on rollers. I had to come down. Our show that was rehearsing, the people came to move me at like 6 o'clock at night. They didn't know that I wasn't ready because nobody had told me I needed to move. So I go down there and I'm like, can I have some help? So students came and helped me move as quickly as we could that night because they were coming the next day to take out my walls. Happened this time. They didn't catch me off guard this time. As soon as we flooded, I said, I need boxes. I got to start packing.
Right.
And they did. So when they came, because again, nobody told me they were coming, I was like, I'm ready for you. So then we packed. And that time I had to vacate completely.
So in regards to overall the student assistants that do help you and the other different fields that we have here within the theater arts department, is it through the TA 2660 course?
I get my student assistants in many ways.
Okay.
First, my students usually start as working in the shop, not paid. They're not paid as student assistants. I get them through the 2660 Introduction to Theater class. I'm one of the lab components that you can choose. And these are usually non-majors who come and do about 24 hours in the shop, either my shop, Sarah's shop, the paint and prop shop, or the scene shop, or ushering with Scott. We have lots of different opportunities through Introduction to Theater to bring in the newbies, bring them to the dark side. Oftentimes, I will get maybe one student every 2 to 3 years who actually changes their major and joins us. And sometimes I find a student assistant, someone who's maybe an English major, but they're very good at sewing and enjoy it, and they would like to earn a Starbucks money working for me a couple hours a week. But we also have our theater practicum, which all theater majors are supposed to take, and that affords you the opportunity to either, again, work at the costume shop, scene shop, paint shop, light shop, get the experience in those other technical areas. And then it's funny, you find people who don't necessarily know they have a certain proclivity or talent in an area, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, this is kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed that. And I say, come work for me. And then I have student assistants for 2 to 3 years. Yeah, hopefully, if I catch them early in time. Sometimes I get them senior year, and I only get them for a year. But I'm always grateful for their time and what I learn from them as much as they learn from me. So we have a good time.
Yeah. And could you recall a time when you had a case where a student was as open as they were throughout their journey, right? You see them change from the very beginning of when they first started as a student assistant, and they've had like a complete 180 turn towards the end of either their course or towards their graduation.
I've had students who were not theater majors who by the end of it had become theater majors. One of myself and Professor Our Pride and Joy is actually Michelle Lakofka. She was an art major. I'm not certain she ever actually became a theater major, but she is the costume shop manager at Cal Baptist University now, and has been under the tutelage of Professor Harrington and a little bit of my help, and she's got a full career. So our greatest joy comes from the students who find success outside of this arena, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in theater, but any of the skills that we've taught them that help propel them towards success, that's what brings us great joy. And all kinds of skills can do that. All kinds of job opportunities besides theater are available to the skills that we give you while you're here.
That's awesome.
That gives a lot for students to look forward to when they choose to come here. So you have had a lot of time here creating so many shows, creating so many costumes for so many characters. What are some of your favorites?
In costuming, there's the coat. For some reason,
The coat.
and you can see my air quotes here. You can hear my air quotes. The coat. There's something about a certain coat that is created that once the actor puts it on, you're like, oh. And for some people, a movie example would be, what is it, Pride and Prejudice, when Matthew McFadden comes walking through the field in his coat, and it's misty, and we're like, oh, the coat. So I've had a couple times in my life where I've made the coat, and there's just something about once the actor puts it on, their stance, and you just say, oh. Dionysus sort of embraces him when that happens, and it's a very lovely thing to enjoy. One of those coats was the year of the first flood. We did, oh my gosh, it's not She Stoops to Conquer. It's one of the other restoration plays. And Horner is the name of the character. And we made this beautiful gray velvet, heavy coat stamped in these gold fleur-de-lis. And Matthew Sardet put it on, and we all went, oh. And I've used that coat several times. And anytime I bring it up, people are like, oh. It's this beautiful, full-skirted, heavy, big-cuffed coat that just gives you this otherworldliness. It's pretty awesome.
Ooh, insert picture here.
I'm sure it'll be in, but it's not She Stoops to Conquer. I couldn't tell you what it's called. Now, that's one of the challenges of being here this long. I'm like, wait, what play? I used to know them all. I used to be like, doop, boop, boop, boop. But I'm like, we did what now?
Right.
This is the one about teacups. I don't know.
Now, that was your favorite. What is your least favorite?
Gosh, that's kind of a hard question because, I mean, you don't want to assign value to something. It's not the actor's fault that they've been giving a Chachi costume, you know. Gosh, that's actually pretty hard to decide. There have been some I haven't been too disappointed in. Oh, it fell apart or got lost in the flood. I am so sad. But usually that's quality based. Like the fabric wasn't very good quality, or
Yeah.
I'm maybe disappointed in my construction skills or my students' construction skills at that time. But nothing evokes the same response as the coat, right? In a negative aspect, anyway. There are things that I refuse to keep in my costume shop. We call them cursed relics. I know symbology that can be, shall we say, World War II German. I don't keep any of that in my costume shop. I refuse to keep those sorts of things. No need to have that energy about. Yeah. I'll rent it from somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically, it's like you have the whoa and then the
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay.
Sometimes, to be fair, the things that you order from Amazon, because we do a lot more ordering than we used to. In the picture was, and you get it and you're like, oh. And there are times when it'll arrive and I almost have to hide it from Professor because I know he's going to be like, that's not what we ordered. And I'm like, unfortunately it is. But it is not like the picture.
Yeah.
And you're going to be mad.
So you have your favorite and those that you wish maybe could have improved upon or just had better quality. But to start that, you need to have like a base of a character and know what costume pieces need to be made. So what is the process for that?
Academic theater is is 100% different than what one might call traditional professional theater because we choose our seasons a little differently. We think about the pedagogy and what needs to occur in terms of what you as students need to be taught, who you are as students and what would be best vehicles for you. But the basic process is always the same. Read. The first thing, we as staff also read the script so that we're familiar with what may be expected. I'm not saying will be because these designers and directors get a little tricky sometimes. As a designer, I can tell you that what we do first is read. We read for pleasure, read to just enjoy the story. And then we start drilling down. We read for research what the things we need to think about. Is it a specific time period, specific needs, specific season? And then we read again for, does there need to be a pocket? Is this where, seriously, like, where does the knife materialize from? How many times have I been asked after dress parade, well, Miss Cat, we need to add a pocket. Okay, there's no seam there, but I'm going to add a pocket. Okay, right? Those are the things you really do have to think about. So first we read the script to understand the text and tell the story that needs to be told. Conversations then occur with the director about the ideas that they may have regarding production, what type of story they want to tell within this framework. Then they go away and they marinate for a little while and they think about how to meld those two ideas together. Professor usually has imagery that he starts with, maybe not things that he's drawn himself, but he starts looking for research imagery that can be in books. I know, ancient technology, a book from the library. We have one of those. That's where the Starbucks is, just so you all know.
Starbucks, that's the trigger word.
Right, Starbucks. But you find all of your imagery first, and then your concept sort of drills down from there. Then they have more conversations. You have to look at who's cast to see what will work with your ideas. Body shape can change some certain ideas. Physicality, what an actor can and can't do, making sure they're able to do those sorts of things so that everything is still text-based but accessible to the actor. And then renderings, pictures of deciding what each character will wear for which scene. I do more of the paperwork side, figuring out who's in what scene, creating what we call a French scene, figuring out the needs, and then how do I decide, or Professor and I decide what we build, what we buy, and what we pull. Sort of depends on the needs of the show, but we have a lot of things already existing. So what can be modified, what can we use that would be appropriate, what pieces really are specific, need to be built for the story to tell it the way we want to tell it. How do I decide between what to buy and what to build? Well, with the advent of Joann's disappearing, and Hobby Lobby's not where I'm going to be buying things. Michael's doesn't have much fabric. I'm not going to be buying much there except crafting supplies. Walmart, I can make stuff for a quilt, but that's not what we're doing. So it means a trip to Los Angeles, which is in and of itself more time consuming than people realize. Or do I buy it at Amazon and then alter it? Buying on Amazon is not my favorite because I'm just more about logistics and less about creation. But you have to do the triangle. Is it cheap, quick, or easy? Right? You only get two. So in this time frame, I have to decide, is ordering it from Amazon at this certain price going to be worth my time? If the answer is yes, then I need to make that decision, make that purchase. But sometimes I'm like, can I just build it? Just let me build it. I'll be faster. Honestly, I can build it faster than it takes to get it delivered. It'll be more like what we want specifically, and so we build it that way.
Right.
So it's sort of just adjusting to the needs of each production, the actors that are coming in. If we've done a play before, like, we have that. I can't go downstairs and pull Romeo and Juliet from the Romeo and Juliet cabinet and do it again because Juliet from then is not Juliet now. Right? It's not, whereas you can pull the scenery if you wanted to, theoretically. We don't do it that way. But, everything has to adapt to the current cast, the current needs, and the current expectations.
Right.
So, go, 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 if that answers your question.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is...
There's a lot more that goes into what we do than people realize.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the big thing I would say about theater is so many people just see the end product.
Right.
They have no idea the amount of man hours that have gone into its creation, from the genesis of the script to the training and the needs of the directors and designers, the training and needs of the actors, how much work has gone into working with an actor, working with the designers to create this final product, which is like no other product, right? It's not repeatable. Even when we do the play, it's not like we press play on a movie. It's the same thing over and over again. Every single production, every single time we present it, is unique in and of itself. And we have a job as the stewards of theater and the arts and humanity to stay present in that moment and be a part of that and not just give it away. And so I think I got a little off plot there, but I got a little excited, sorry. But I don't know. I sort of lost myself there. I apologize.
Don't apologize. This is what this podcast is all about. Just
Exactly.
yapping and yapping.
Exactly.
I actually have a question for you.
Yes.
So, working as a graphic designer, and this is my question for her. So, working as a graphic designer in Photoshop and stuff like that, whenever I'm editing a photo, I do it in a non-destructive way, right? So I don't completely destroy the original piece, right? I can modify it, but keep that original in there, right? When you are making alterations to a costume, do you have to think like that as well? Do you do it in a non-destructive way? Like, do you cut pieces away, or do you fold them under and re-sew? That way, if it needs to be let out again, you can.
Professor and I will have conversations about what to do for alterations sometimes, because sometimes, based on the needs of the actor, you're going to have to cut it up. It is what it is. And sometimes I'm like, I can make another set of those, just cut it up, do what you're going to do. But, and this is a little known secret, theater people sometimes tend to be hoarders. Shh, don't tell. But we have the need to keep, we're little gremlins, we like little dragons, we like to keep our stuff. So I try not to destroy unless necessary. But sometimes it just doesn't look right. You can fold it up all you want, but it's going to look all bulky. I have a responsibility as someone who maybe when I borrow things to make sure that I return them in the same or better condition than I received them. So sometimes I've frustrated a director by saying I can't do that alteration, I can't change that because it's not ours. I can't cut into something that doesn't belong to me. And I'm not going to, right? I'm not going to beg forgiveness. No, we don't do that. I'll make you a new one if you need it different, right? That would be the choice. If either choose what exists or allow me to make a new one and spend the money on that. And that can be a choice. But you have to honor somebody else's work. You don't just necessarily cut into it.
Right.
And like I say in my shop, if you're not certain, don't cut it. I can fix most anything as long as you don't cut it. It's not the scene shop. We're not gluing things back together. So I'm like, put the scissors down. And I've had a couple instances where they didn't, and I had to fix that.
Did they at least give you chocolate after?
Well, this poor young student misinterpreted my instruction and cut a giant hole right in the center of this gown. It was like a caftan, but still, and I was like, that's when I just walked away at that point. They knew I was upset, but I mean, it was a mistake. What do you do? So you don't make it a mistake, you make it a design choice. So that actor had this lovely piece of fabric right in the center of his chest. It was like, oh, look, that's now on purpose, right? No, they didn't bring me chocolate. Bradley, you owe me chocolate.
Actually, I don't even think we added context to that. Why the chocolate thing? Why explain to the audience, what do we mean from giving you chocolate?
So traditionally, if you're late to a fitting or measurement appointment, you owe that person chocolate. And basically, it comes down to respect, right? Respect my time, I'm respecting your time. We've scheduled a time for you to be here. There's a reason that I need you here at a certain time in order to eventually, as an actor, make you look good on stage. I can't make the coat if you're not there, right? So the way we try to reinforce that here is that some chocolate Dove and above is owed if you are tardy, so that we can maybe break that cycle and you can become a good professional and be on time. That's the goal.
Now, Jason, how many chocolates have you had to give?
Hey, listen now. Listen now.
I had several Hershey bars for quite some time. Hershey's.
I was told to give you Hershey's.
I don't know who told you that. They steered you wrong, bud.
That was Angel Gutierrez.
Dove and above.
Okay. That was, if I remember correctly, it was FML. And that was a week before we went to Vegas, too, so that was horrible.
Right before KCACTF, I'm sure.
KCACTF, yeah. And then I believe...
Look, life happens. That's the other thing. Life happens. We get it. A phone call, a lot of those things can ameliorate, being in trouble, but chocolate just makes it fun, and then I have chocolate. And you don't want me hangry.
Yeah, I think the other time, it was for Murder on the Orient Express. I remember I came in, 2 chocolate bars. I was like, here you go, Miss Cat. Here you go, Professor.
I think you preloaded, yeah.
Professor was like, "Oh, I don't want that. Give it to Miss Cat." And
Yeah, because you gave him Hershey's. Down and above. Milk for Professor. I'll take milk or dark, but not white because it's not chocolate.
I've learned my lesson.
If you really want to get on my good side, you bring caramel.
Write that down. Write that down. Write that down. Write that down.
Jacob, take note.
Well, I believe with that being said, I appreciate you so much spending your time with me, with both of us, and it was truly an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you
And
for
thank you
having
so
me
much.
and letting me yum, yum, yum.
Well, with that being said, we appreciate you all coming here and watching this episode. Please leave a like, comment what you think, subscribe. But that concludes today's episode with Miss Cat. My name is Jason Davila, president of the Players of the Pear Garden,
And I'm Cameron, treasurer of the Players of the Pear Garden.
and that was the podcast of the Pear Garden.
Dove and above, people. Dove and above.
Yeah, I told you, don't give me a microphone.
Hitting the microphone
Oh my God, gracious above. That's why you don't give actors props.
I'm just gonna. There.
Please keep this all in.
Oh, it's been recording for like the last 5 minutes.
Fantastic.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.